If you don't already know, I'm a huge fan of the Adult Swim show Home Movies created by Brendan Small and Loren Bouchard, so much so to where I think it's one of the greatest animated shows ever made. After that show's cancellation, both its creators parted ways to work on solo projects, the most popular being Bouchard's show Bob's Burgers, which has been running for well over a decade now. While Bob's Burgers is considered by many to be the spiritual follow-up to Home Movies, many people forget that between the release of those two shows, Bouchard created another series for Adult Swim called Lucy, the Daughter of the Devil. Premiering on October 30th, 2005, Lucy, the Daughter of the Devil follows Satan's 21-year-old daughter, who is currently living in an apartment in San Francisco. She begins dating the second coming of Jesus, or as he likes to be called in this show, Jesus, who has returned to Earth as a DJ. While this is going on, Satan unfolds several plots for world domination with the help of his assistant Becky, while a group of clergymen from Europe attempt to kill Lucy upon finding out she's the Antichrist. Lucy, the Daughter of the Devil, broke new ground for Adult Swim in a few ways, being both the first show on the network to be animated in CGI, as well as the first one to follow a female protagonist. The pilot episode of Lucy, the Daughter of the Devil featured actress Jessie Klein voicing the titular character, but she was replaced with Melissa Galsky of Home Movies fame in subsequent episodes. The Devil is played by the great John Benjamin, who at this point I'm pretty sure is contractually obligated to star in every single Loren Bouchard show. The pilot aired several times for 2 years until new episodes finally started to hit the airwaves on September 9th, 2007. 2 years after that season had finished airing, the show was formally cancelled in 2009, with only 11 episodes under its belt, including the pilot. Despite its short run and being stuck in production hell for almost half a decade, Lucy, the Daughter of the Devil has been praised by many as being a highly underrated Adult Swim series. Just ask Archer himself.
First thing I did was watch every episode of Lucy, Daughter of the Devil, which, by the way, was grossly
inadequate preparation.
I was gonna say underrated.
Anyone going into this who is only familiar with Bob's Burgers or Home Movies may be thrown off by the tone at first. While those two shows for the most part are somewhat grounded in reality, Lucy, the Daughter of the Devil is much more high concept to say the least. It sticks out like a sore thumb both in its writing and presentation, but those who know the backstory behind Bob's Burgers production may not be too shocked by this. You see, the original concept behind that show was that the Belchers were a family of cannibals running a restaurant selling human meat, somewhat akin to Sweeney Todd. Fox executives shot down this concept, but they did like the idea of a family running a restaurant, so they asked the team to repurpose it into what eventually became Bob's Burgers. People are often shocked to find out this dark origin story, but when you consider the fact that Bouchard's previous show was Lucy, the Daughter of the Devil, this darker concept really makes a lot of sense. Also, even though Bob's Burgers takes place in an unspecified town on the East Coast, a lot of the background art for the show is inspired by San Francisco architecture, due to Loren Bouchard coming up with the idea while living in that city. Lucy, the Daughter of the Devil is specifically set in San Francisco, and animated there if you look at the credits, thus planting another seed to be expanded upon by the Belcher family. And of course, Lucy, the Daughter of the Devil shares a lot of the same cast with Bouchard's other projects. A lot of creators tend to pair up with recurring cast members for different shows and movies, which does make a lot of sense if it's a winning formula. The reason it's notable in this case specifically is because Loren Bouchard's shows often rely on a lot of improvisational humor, particularly his early work such as Home Movies. This makes the cast hugely responsible for the vibe of each show, oftentimes equally to the actual writers. Speaking of the cast, John Benjamin does a great job in this series as always. I've heard some people criticize Benjamin for doing the same voice over and over again, and saying that he has no diversity or range. This criticism to me couldn't be further from the truth. What people need to keep in mind is that while John Benjamin does use his normal voice for a lot of characters, he's often playing multiple roles on each show that he's in. In Home Movies, he played Coach McGurk, Jason, Perry, and various supporting characters. In Bob's Burgers, he plays Bob, Jimmy Jr., Miss LeBons, Peter, and Speedo Guy, among others. Lucy, the Daughter of the Devil is no different, with Satan being his normal voice, but using different voices for one of the clergymen, Judas, and various supporting characters. This also leads to a lot of scenes where John Benjamin has to work off of, well, himself, which is often easier said than done. In any case, whether he's using his normal voice or doing a variation, John Benjamin is consistently hilarious, thus making him one of my all-time favorite voice actors and comedians. The rest of the cast does a great job as well. Melissa Galsky is great as the titular Lucy, as well as the Devil's assistant Becky. I'll admit that being a huge home movies fan, I can't help but love hearing her voice in anything, especially when paired up with John Benjamin. John Glasser is hilarious as DJ Jesus, as is Todd Barry, who plays many supporting roles throughout the series. Sam Cedar, who is probably best known among animation fans as playing Hugo on Bob's Burgers, also appears in this series as one of the clergymen and Senator Bob Whitehead. Unsurprisingly, he knocks both roles out of the park, giving a lot of personality to both characters. But by far the biggest standout amongst the cast, which came as a huge surprise to me, was Eugene Meerman as Sister Mary, one of the special clergy members. For those of you who don't know, Meerman is the voice of Gene on Bob's Burgers, who has also appeared on shows like Delocated and Flight of the Conchords. This may be a controversial opinion, but while I do enjoy Bob's Burgers overall as a show, I'm really not a big fan of Gene as a character, and I find Eugene Meerman's performance to be pretty grating on the ears. Considering he plays a much higher-pitched character in Lucy the Daughter of the Devil, I was kind of expecting to be irritated by this part of the show. Much to my surprise, Sister Mary is probably the funniest character in my opinion, with Meerman giving the absolute best vocal performance I've ever heard from him. Sister Mary is also notable for being a male actor cast as a female character, which is something that Loren Bouchard would do a lot more in Bob's Burgers. Guess that makes Meerman somewhat ahead of his time here, at least until our society arbitrarily decides that casting people as different genders is problematic, much like they did with races. But how about we avoid that rabbit hole for the time being? Let's move on to how the show looks. A lot of Adult Swim shows are known for their crappy animation, which has kind of become a staple on the network. This isn't always the case, as certain shows like Moral Oral or The Venture Brothers have really great animation, but many shows look visually basic on purpose, often to parody shows with choppy animation like Hanna-Barbera cartoons. Lucy the Daughter of the Devil falls in line with this satire, with the only difference being that the visuals are CGI instead of hand-drawn. As someone who has recently watched through the first season of Reboot, I can definitely say the animation in this show, even by the standards of 2005, looks ridiculously primitive. That being said, I find it very unique visually in a lot of ways. The character design is absolutely hilarious, as they obviously have very little movement to work with, despite being played by very expressive voice actors. The backgrounds look like the type of thing you'd find in an AI image generator nowadays, and not a particularly advanced one at that. Do I think the show will appeal to everyone visually? Absolutely not, and I much prefer the visuals of 2D animation in general, even crappy animation. At the same time, I saw what they were going for and I really enjoyed it for what it was. Aside from the visuals, the tone of the show is very distinct too. The pacing on this show is way faster than Bob's Burgers or Home Movies, undoubtedly due to being 11 minutes rather than 22. It's to the point where it feels like sensory overload at certain points. It doesn't help that many of the episodes have 3 or 4 plot lines going on at once that jump back and forth between each other. It's like I'm watching Magnolia on an extremely intense 11-minute drug trip. Not that I'm complaining though, as the fast pace does lead to some very funny moments. Other episodes are much more streamlined and don't even feature the entire main cast members, so you never really know what you're gonna get. While the show doesn't seem to follow many rules in terms of where the story goes, there is somewhat of a consistent format for the openings. Generally, each episode opens up with a dark monologue from someone, usually one of the clergymen, that quickly diverts into something funny that breaks the tension. This is not dissimilar to the Dr. Weird openings from the first 2 seasons of Aqua Teen Hunger Force, except the Lucy cold opens tend to be a little bit more related to what's going on in the actual episode. Usually. After this, we transition into the opening themes, which, much like Perfect Hair Forever, are a different song each time. In Lucy the Daughter of the Devil, the themes tend to be parodies of popular music from artists such as Alice Cooper, The Grateful Dead, and Chris Butler. The pilot episode originally had Man-Eater by Halls & Oates as the theme song, but it was changed for an impromptu John Benjamin song in subsequent airings. I have no qualms about that, as the replacement song is way funnier to me. Other themes aren't based on pre-existing songs at all, and seem to be improvised by the cast members themselves. Many episodes also include a lot of fun musical numbers too, which should come as no surprise to anyone who has seen Bouchard's other projects. The credits of each episode are always different as well, sometimes including a song, and sometimes being a scene of the characters bickering with each other. This is a really good way to keep the audience on their toes and be prepared for anything to happen. I wouldn't classify this show as a religious satire in the traditional sense, but it does definitely revolve a lot around that subject. There is one episode where Jesus, Becky, and Satan travel through the desert to Burning Man as a nod to the Temptation of Christ story from the Bible. Another episode sees a group of vampire altar boys feasting on priests as a nod to, shall we say, Catholic issues. There is definite satire to be found here, but at the same time, I don't think Lucy the Daughter of the Devil is saying anything particularly important for or against religion itself. There are a few jabs throughout the series, such as when Jesus writes a book that isn't supposed to be taken literally, despite the fact that it's all about things that literally happened, but those aren't really the focus of the show. Anyone going into this expecting the next biting commentary like Moral Oral are not going to get that out of Lucy the Daughter of the Devil. I also personally wouldn't say there's anything really that offensive about this show that'll turn off most religious people, unless you consider Jesus being a bit of a playboy to be offensive. Then again, as someone who isn't religious and grew up on a healthy dose of South Park, Wonder Shows, and Kenny vs. Spenny, maybe I'm not the best person to determine what is or isn't offensive. Other episodes of this show have absolutely nothing to do with religion, and instead revolve around topics such as giant kaiju monsters, dildo factories, and being a waitress. There are also a lot of references to horror movies. The episode Dreamster is an homage to the Nightmare on Elm Street series, and another episode involves a group of ghosts from an abandoned Catholic girls' school haunting the protagonists. No matter how bizarre and crazy the show gets, it manages to keep a consistent tone throughout, being dark and morbid, but also really silly. There's also a sense that, at its core, Lucy the Daughter of the Devil is basically about a father who interferes way too much with his daughter's personal life. It's a very basic premise if you look at it that way, it's just that the nature of them being demons from hell makes it anything but ordinary. Many teenage girls probably do see their fathers as the embodiment of the devil on some level, so it's actually pretty clever in this context. Not bad themes for the first female-led Adult Swim show to tackle. With all that in mind, how does Lucy the Daughter of the Devil hold up in retrospect? I would say overall, quite well. Being very familiar with the creator's other work, it's refreshing to see him tackle such a high-concept premise. This is a very out-there show, to be sure, and I could definitely see why someone wouldn't be able to get into it. I'd be lying if I said I didn't understand why this didn't get picked up for a second season. That said, if there's one place I'd expect it to be able to flourish, Adult Swim would be it. Perhaps executives didn't believe in it, the audience wasn't there, or a combination of the two. Inaccessible doesn't necessarily mean bad, and I think Lucy the Daughter of the Devil has a lot to appreciate about it. The chemistry amongst the cast is superb, and the humor is dark, bizarre, and varied, leading to a show which is by and large unpredictable. If I were to pick my favorite episodes, I'd say they were Temptasia, The Special Fathers vs. the Vampire Altar Boys, Satan's School for Girls, and Monster. Most of those episodes were near the end of the season, which to me says that the show is really finding its voice before they unfortunately had the plug pulled. How do I think Lucy the Daughter of the Devil compares to Loren Bouchard's other projects? Well, I haven't seen Central Park, so I can't comment on that, but personally I would say that I don't think Lucy the Daughter of the Devil is quite as good as either Bob's Burgers or Home Movies. Granted, this is largely because those two shows both had more time to find their voices. Lucy the Daughter of the Devil didn't receive that luxury, and if I were to guess, subsequent seasons of this show would have probably been a massive improvement. With that in mind, how does Lucy the Daughter of the Devil compare to the first seasons of Bouchard's other shows that I've seen? I would say that I think it's better than the first season of Bob's Burgers, but not quite as good as the first season of Home Movies. It may not rank among my favorite Adult Swim shows of all time or anything, but it possibly could have with a little bit more time to become fully realized. I definitely think Lucy the Daughter of the Devil deserved to get renewed and garner more of a cult following than it currently does. Given the success of Loren Bouchard's newer projects, I doubt we'll see this show return anytime soon, but at least there's more than enough here to appreciate. Also, I love the Tom Goes to the Mayor reference in the first episode. Wasn't sure how to fit that into the script properly, so there you go.
Oh, it's me again. Yeah, thanks for watching the video. It's been a while, so yeah, if you'd like to donate to the channel, we have our Patreon and all those other funny links at the bottom here. You can also send us money via super chats and on any of the videos. Also, join our Discord because that would be great to talk to us and a few of our other subscribers. If you feel so inclined, please like, subscribe, comment, and share more videos because we'd like to, get our videos out there a little bit more. Yeah, he'd like to mention that this video falls under fair use. I guess I think that should be implied, but whatever. I'm going to say it anyway. What else? I can't really think of anything else. So here is a video of Mr. Anime shaking it. Yeah, enjoy.
I like to get out and do a little funk sometimes. Mr. Anime can shake it.